Hi everyone and welcome to the AWS Nordic office hours. My name is Gunnar Grosch and I will be your host today together with my friend and colleague Dennis. Hey Dennis.
Hey Gunnar, hey everyone, how you doing?
So great to be here today again. Today it is our normal office hours for AWS Nordics, visited by Dennis from AWS in Germany. But no matter where you're from, where you're watching from, feel free to use this hour as a way to ask your questions, AWS related questions to us. Me and Dennis will try to answer them as best we can, of course. Besides that, we're also going to talk a bit about different things that has happened during AWS reInvent. Talk about some of the exciting launches and announcements we saw there. So before we kick those things off, I just want to show you our upcoming schedule for the AWS Nordics office hours. We have a few episodes scheduled with some of the AWS experts from the Nordics. So next week on February 1st, we're going to have Adrian Hornsby here to talk about AWS Fault Injection Simulator, the managed chaos engineering service that we
You
launched
can't
during reInvent.
you can't miss that. I'm not gonna miss that because I'm really looking forward to that. Adrian, everybody in the Nordics probably knows Adrian. And the fault injection simulator is one of the services that I'm really excited about. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, so this is your chance to ask your questions about the service, about reliability, resilience, chaos engineering to Adrian, one of the let's call him a thought leader in the space. I think we can do that. So if you did watch the session during reInvent, well, this is gonna be an even deeper dive into the service. So looking forward to that. The week after, on February 8th, we're gonna have Signe Teamforce. She's a solution architect for AWS in the Nordics, working with startups to talk about streaming and real-time analytics, working with serverless. So that's also a very interesting space, and we had several announcements in that space during reInvent as well. So I think that's going to be an interesting session to see how we can use serverless for streaming and real-time analytics. Then our specialist solution architects for serverless, Nicholas Muchen, will join us on February 15th to talk about serverless, of course. On February 22nd, we're going to have Andreas Lind. He's a specialist solution architect for containers. And then we have Vikesh Pandey on March 1st to talk about AI ML. And if you joined us for the Nordics AWS reInvent recap last week, you all know Nicholas, Andreas, and Vikesh from that recap. So that's the upcoming schedule for our Nordics office hours. So do join us every week. And once again, welcome to this hour with us from AWS. All right, Dennis. So we're going to jump into some of the announcement we saw. I just want to remind everyone one last thing, that on the AWS Nordics office hours website, we have a button where you can schedule a one-on-one meeting with AWS experts from the Nordics. So just go to the website and press that button and you're able to schedule a meeting. If you have any specific use cases you want to talk to an expert about, or if you have specific questions that we perhaps are unable to cover in this hour, well, go to the webpage, schedule a meeting, and get the help you need. All right, Dennis. So reInvent this year, it was a biggie. 3 weeks first, and then we had some additional days. Was that last week? 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
Time flies.
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how fast it went. It was a really long time, so it was a lot of work and a lot of new announcements, but at the same time, it went past so quick. We had 3 weeks of material. We had 5 keynotes, more than 500,000 attendees. It was really awesome. It was really great. And we had so many sessions, so many launches. I think we're going to talk about a few interesting things today. Apart from that, to the audience, please, no matter what we talk about here, if you have any questions, just jump in, just put your questions in the chat, just let us know, because we want to talk about what interests you. And maybe there are a few things from reInvent that we can talk about as well.
Yeah. So let's jump into some of the interesting things we saw during reInvent. First off, Dennis, the climate pledge.
Yeah, that's really dear to. That's not really an announcement from this year's reInvent, because the climate pledge has been around for quite some time. For everybody who doesn't know, the climate pledge has been founded by Amazon some time ago, where we as Amazon in general, not only AWS, but Amazon in general, said we pledge, we want to reach the Paris Agreement. We want to be carbon neutral as a company, as an organization, but we want to be that 10 years early. So 10 years before the countries who signed the climate pledge, the Paris Agreement, we said we want to be carbon neutral by 2040. And we invited many other large organizations to join us in that climate pledge. And the great thing is many companies around the world did, including some competitors of AWS, actually. Yeah. So we are doing a lot of things. We put sustainability at center stage. In the in the cloud, so many things are about cost reduction, about security, reliability, operational effectiveness, and performance. So you can achieve all that. But at the same time, sustainability is one of the largest reasons, one of the best reasons to go into the cloud, because our data centers, and Peter DeSantis talked about that in his keynote during reInvent, our data centers have 85% higher efficiency than the average normal data center does, because we try to do so many things through automation that we make sure that our hardware is being utilized at a very high level, and we make sure that we buy as much carbon neutral energy as possible. So Amazon has become the world's largest corporate buyer of renewable energy. So we try to not rely on fossil energy. We're trying to not rely on climate negative energy. We're setting up tons of our own power plants, of our own solar power plants and wind power plants, but also we purchase a lot. And the thing is, we do have the shared responsibility model. Talking about security, we often talk about the shared responsibility model, where AWS takes care of security in the cloud, security off the cloud, I'm sorry. And you as a customer have to take care of security of your workloads in the cloud. And we provide you tools and guides to do that. I think it's the same thing if you look at sustainability. We take care of sustainability off the cloud. So we make sure that our hardware, our buildings, our energy supply, and everything is as efficient as possible, and we run carbon neutral. But at the same time, there's a responsibility that you can take as our customers to make it more sustainable. One of the things could be to not have applications running all the time when you don't need them. Turn your EC2 instances off when you don't need them, for instance, or use Lambda functions instead of long-running instances to not have something running when it's idle. Peter DeSantis said the only no, I don't really. I'm sorry, I don't really remember the quote that he said, but what he actually said was the fact that idle systems that are running idle are very inefficient. So the only efficient systems are systems that actually do something. And this is something that you can do, but also on a completely different level. Like for instance, if you build for mobile devices, if you have built mobile applications, you can, for instance, make sure that what you build does not only run on the most modern, on the newest devices, but also runs on older devices, so that your users don't have to buy new devices all over again and have to throw away the old ones. So there are many ways that we as a cloud provider, but also you as a developer, as someone who builds something and runs something in the cloud, can make everything much more sustainable, much more effective when it comes to the climate and to CO2 and other climate negative things. So I could talk about it hours long, because I really like the topic. Sustainability is in the heart of things. And this year at reInvent, I think AWS really put sustainability, the climate pledge, and everything we do around it at center stage. It's not only about cost, security, and everything. That's all important, but it also needs to be sustainable. It also needs to, we have to think of the future. We have to think of our kids, of our environment, of the planet. And that is something that I really liked about this year's reInvent.
Yeah, it's obvious that this is an area that you are very supportive of.
Yeah.
And as the slide says right now, Paris 10 years early. And I think the Paris Agreement says that net zero 2050. So this means net zero 2040 then.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting on something important when you talk about that it's not only about what we as a cloud provider does, that everyone, the way we build, the way we use different, for instance, compute services is important in this, in this fight for the climate. That we're using our compute instances, for instance, in a smart way to save the resources.
Yes, and there are many ways to do that. On one hand, of course, many companies still have to rely on traditional servers, on traditional VMs. They need to use EC2 instances or maybe containers on long-running instances. But still, there are tools like you could right-size your instance. You don't need the largest instance that is available. You can really try, and we provide you with the tools to have insights into the actual load on your instances. You can use tools like auto-scaling to scale in and out. You can use things like the instance scheduler solution, where you can define regular intervals where your instances are being shut down because you might not need them on the weekends or during the nights. You can automatically have your instances being shut down overnight, being turned back on in the morning. And many other companies, many other customers or Lambda functions to only use resources when they're actually needed. I think we lost Gunnar.
I am here. But...
I have trouble connecting. Sure. Someone has trouble connecting. I'm not sure if it's you or me. Oh, you lost us both? Okay,
That's the worst possible one.
Okay, now we're both gone. I'm sorry.
Oh well.
I can
hear you now, at least, Dennis. So.
Oh, we both wrote, I'm sorry. Okay.
Very sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully we're back.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe someone in the chat can let us know if we're back. Let me see. I'll open up. Oh yeah, Actress says we're here. Okay, great. Thanks. I'm really sorry about that. Technical issues. A glitch in the matrix.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, so I lost probably last 30 seconds of what you said there, Dennis, but I imagine it was brilliant.
Thanks. What's the next topic?
Well, the next topic then is the AWS well-architected tool.
Yes.
So, well, what happened with the AWS well-architected tool during re:Invent? There were a bunch of announcements.
Yeah, a bunch. The most important thing, or maybe not, it depends on what you look at. But for me, actually, as I used to be a solutions architect in the past, so I ran a couple of well-architected reviews with customers. And if you don't know what a well-architected review is, the well-architected framework for us is a framework that helps us look at cloud-based workloads from different perspectives, like security, cost optimization, reliability, performance, operationability, to really ask a number of questions to understand how can we make effective use of the cloud. It is not so much an audit. It is more really around what can you do? What should you think about if you're running workloads in the cloud to, for instance, make them really secure or make them really cost effective. And the well-architected tool is a tool that helps you do this yourself. So you can do this with a solutions architect from AWS or with a partner, but you can also do that yourself. So the well-architected tool is integrated into the AWS console, and you really can go through all the questions, all the best practices, all the things that we provide for yourself to understand how to make your cloud workload more secure, for instance. And the well-architected tool is what I also used when I worked as a solutions architect with customers, and we went through their workloads, made a well-architected review. We used the tool inside of the customer's accounts and documented this. So we have the tool helps the customer to see where do you stand in regards to the different pillars of the well-architected framework. Do you maybe have some high-risk issues that you need to address? And this is where the tool helps you. One of the things that was that has changed now or has been added to the tool now is an actual API. And what's great about that is if you have many workloads in the cloud, if you run a well-architected review, many of the questions have been answered a couple of times. Could be, for instance, like, do you have a data classification framework? Like, have you classified data as public, internal, confidential, maybe top secret? Many companies have these kinds of frameworks, and this is a question that is being asked as part of the well-architected framework, the well-architected assessment in the well-architected tool. And this is something that when I ran reviews with my customers, I had to answer this over and over again, even though everybody knew, yes, we do have a classification framework, but we still had to answer it. What you can do using the API really is having some defaults. If you have some security controls in place throughout the whole organization, you can just put them into the well-architected tool through the API and have it pre-filled so that the team can focus, use their precious time to really focus on the important questions that are important for the specific workloads, and not all the questions that have been answered all the time. So through the API, you can really make effective use of your time by putting in everything that you already know in advance. And on the other hand, if by running a well-architected assessment, you find out you do have, for instance, a high-risk item where security might be impacted or cost might be impacted, you can then use the API to automatically open a ticket or open an automation process so that you can take subsequent steps. You don't have to look into the tool to see if you have any high-risk items. You can automatically put them in your workflow tool and the ticketing tool of your choice. And these are different things that you can do right now around the well-architected framework and the well-architected tool. And that is something that I really like as a former solutions architect and a former consultant in the cloud space. where things can be automated, and I can focus my time, and you can focus your time on the very important questions that are relevant to your workload. And that's what I really like about the well-architected tool. And the other thing also is we have a couple of new lenses, because not every workload is equal. Not every application is equal. And we have a number of new lenses. We do have already lenses around serverless, for instance. But what we have announced this reInvent is the
Dennis?
SAS Lens, the software as a service lens.
Can you explain what a lens is in the well-architected tool?
Of course. A lens is a way to look at your application. So in a serverless application, you have to focus on different things than if you run SAP in the cloud, as you can imagine. And a lens offers a specific perspective that takes specifics into account when you run a specific type of application. So if you run a software as a service application, you have to take care of things like data isolation, tenant isolation. You have to make sure that one tenant of your software as a service is not able to accidentally access data of another tenant. You have to make sure that things are really isolated. And the SAS Lens contains a number of questions that help understand how you can effectively isolate the data and what you have to make sure to effectively isolate the data. On the other side, if you have the serverless lens, for instance, you have to look at different things, like how do you make sure to not run into a cost trap, because you have for instance, an infinite, you build an infinite loop where things start to run all over and over again, which could lead to costs running up unnecessarily. That is something that you need to take care of if you run a serverless application, or that your actual functions, that your code is able to run effectively in a very short amount of time. That is important if you run serverless. It would be a completely different thing if you would have to run a long-running SAP workload in the cloud. And I'm sure we're going to come up with other lenses that look at traditional workloads. And we do have one of those, which is the management and governance lens. The management and governance lens is really helps you look at your operations. How can you operate your workloads in the cloud, but not only in the cloud, also on premises? How can you run them effectively? So we have the well-architected framework. To conclude, long story short, the well-architected framework brings back tons of best practices that we learned throughout the last 20 plus years as Amazon, that we learned throughout the last 13, 14, 15 years as AWS, running huge workloads for our customers, and also that our customers learned running workloads in the cloud. We bring these best practices together into a framework, and over time, we specify different, basically specializations of this framework for specific workloads. And that is what's new this year. We have the SAS Lens, and we have the management and governance lens for the well-architected framework.
Oh, that's great. And the well-architected framework, it's something that I have a huge interest in regards to reliability. And that's something we're going to discuss next week as well with Adrian Hornsby, when we're talking about AWS Fault Injection Simulator. So join us for that session as well. All right, Dennis, so let's skip on to the next then. And if you're just joining us, this is the AWS Nordics office hours. I am joined by Dennis. We're talking about some announcements from AWS reInvent. But we're here to answer any questions you might have about AWS as well. So keep the questions coming in the chat. All right. So this is AWS Cloud Shell.
Yes, that is.
So we jumped from the climate pledge through AWS well-architected tool and now onto Cloud Shell. So this is nitty-gritty.
Yeah, this is something, maybe I can demo it real quick. Let me see if I can pull up a browser window. The Cloud, I'm improvising now. We have so many things to talk about. I'm not going to show it now. The Cloud Shell. I had a discussion right after it has been announced. And just real quick, what is Cloud Shell for everybody who doesn't know? Cloud Shell basically is a command shell right in your cloud interface in your AWS web-based AWS console. So you can click on an item, an icon just on top of your web page. It doesn't work in Stockholm yet. Unfortunately, it isn't available in Frankfurt either, but we have it in Ireland, and I'm sure it's going to be rolled out all over Europe quite soon. But what you can do is you can really just open a bash shell where everything's pre-installed. Your AWS, the AWS CLI command line interface tool is pre-installed, and you can just access your cloud resources through the CLI without having to set anything up locally. It uses the credentials that you are logged in with. So if you're logged in as an admin, you can do many things with it. But you could also create accounts or roles for users that should have only restricted right, and they still can use Cloud Shell to directly access the CLI tools instead of having to click through the console. Many people like to click through the console and do it visually, but many other people really like to do things through a shell. And now with Cloud Shell, you have a shell integrated into your web console without having to set anything up locally. And one thing that I had a discussion with Markus Ostertag, who is an AWS hero based out of Munich, and he runs the AWS Munich user group. And we had a discussion right after the announcement where we thought about, does anybody really need this? Because most of the people we know, most of our customers really have their cloud environments set up and have their local environments set up. But on the other hand, there are many people who don't. And also, I realize sometimes when I'm not sitting at my work computer, and I still want to just access my cloud resources real quick. And I just have my iPad, for instance, and I want to look at something using the CLI. I can just log into the console and use the Cloud Shell, and this is really helpful. But what I would really like to know for you in the chat, for everybody listening, what about you? Have you tried Cloud Shell? First, as a question, please answer in the chat if you want. Have you tried Cloud Shell yet? And secondly, do you think this is helpful, or have you set everything up? Just maybe put an answer in the chat on the side. Have you used Cloud Shell? Yes or no? And do you think it is helpful? Yes or no? I'm really interested in that, because for me, I've got everything set up here. It is not that helpful, but at the same time, I realize I can sit in my living room with the iPad and still work on it. Cloud Shell is for Linux 2 only. Quincy,
yeah, it runs using Amazon Linux 2. That's right.
But then again, you don't need to run Linux 2 because it does it for you in the background. So yeah. Right now, as far as I know, I'm not quite sure. As far as I know, you can't run PowerShell in the Cloud Shell, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm not quite sure yet.
Yeah. No, I'm not sure either. But yeah, one thing I really like about it is that you have this 1 gigabyte of persistent storage.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's 1 gigabyte per region. So
yes,
if you need to install any additional scripts, any tools, for instance, you can install them and store them there. If you have scripts, for instance, that you run every now and then, you can store them in region and use them there.
Yeah, and while you're talking, I'll really set up a quick demo. Just give me a second.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that this has been a huge ask from customers. A lot of people have been asking for command line access that you can use directly from the browser. But around the question you ask, perhaps it depends on who that user is. If it is a user that have everything set up their own way, or if they, as you mentioned, they switch between devices, for instance, or just quickly want to do something without the need for installing additional tools.
Let me see if I can share my screen. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, so this is now I'm logged into to just an account on AWS, and up here, as you can see, here's this. Can you see my mouse? No, you can't see my mouse. No, never mind. So up here, right next to the search bar, there's a symbol. Here you go. There's a symbol. If you click on it, it just opens up the Cloud Shell. If you run it for the first time, it takes a little bit because it sets up an environment for you. If you have turned it off for some time and come back, or if you haven't used it for some time and then come back, it takes a little bit of time because, as I said before, talking about the climate pledge, we try not to run resources that are not needed. So it takes a few seconds, maybe a minute or two, to get back up, and then you can actually use a shell as it is. It's still waiting, takes another second. And if I move over, for instance, to Stockholm, I think we don't have it yet. No, we don't have it yet in Stockholm. We do have it here. Now it's up. So as you can see, here's just a shell, and I can do an AWS. Everything's installed. STS. What was it? Get. No, I'm missing the get. That's when I improvise. I forget everything. My vacation was too long. Get what's to get my identity? The command STS get
caller identity.
Caller identity. That's what I was looking for. Get caller identity. Here we go. And as you can see, everything's set up. I'm logged in. It's the same role. So I'm in the role here, admin, the same role as up here. So you can see the shell has exactly the permissions that I have with the role that I'm logged in with. And what I can do here, clear this. For instance, start tmux. So tmux is already installed. Yeah, right. Get all passwords. I don't have any passwords on this one. So we have in the chat. So what I've got here is tmux, and if I start a new, here we go, Command B, Control B. Here. So now I have my tmux set up right here. I could also add a Control B. Yeah, here we go. So everything's set up, and I haven't prepared this. This is just out of the box, how it works out of the box. And I'll go down there and let me see. We have a directory. We have the temp directory, lstmp. And that's the important thing. So since I started tmux, it put my tmux configuration into the temp directory, because what is very important about the Cloud Shell, it only persists data in the temp directory. It does not persist data in other directories. So if you want to persist data across sessions, you have to put them into the temp directory. If you want to install tools that you want to use in the next session, you have to make sure the tools are installed in the temp directory, not in a user bin or in your home directory. So that's very important, because you're going to lose data across sessions, except when you put them into the temp directory, because we really want to make sure that the minimal amount necessary, the minimal amount of resources that's necessary is being used. But at the same time, we want to make sure that you have a way to have a persistent session or have persistence across multiple sessions. That's very important. And that's the Cloud Shell.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, we do have an interesting point here by Pablo Join. It's a little weird that to persist data you have to do it by using temp directory. Yeah, and that's basically because there is not an actual machine reserved for you with the complete environment. We try to run it as effectively and as efficiently as possible. So what we really do is we set up a storage space for you, but we don't set up a whole environment, including home directory, binary directories, and so forth. So that's why we made this design decision to really have that. It is somewhat inconvenient because you have to take care of it on one hand, but on the other hand, it makes it very effective and also very cost effective. So this feature doesn't cost you anything. If we would have to run a complete container for you with the whole environment and everything being stored and backed up, on EBS volumes, we would have to charge for that. And this way, we have found a way to not have to charge you anything, but still have a means of persistence across sessions for you. So that's a trade-off we had to do. And but still, thanks for the feedback. If you use it, please let us know how you like it. And if there are any things that you don't like about it, if there's anything that we could do better, let us know and we can talk with the service teams and help them understand what you actually need. Right?
Yeah, that's great. And that is something that is very interesting on all services, of course, but none the least, these services that are new, services that we've recently launched and aren't rolled out into every region yet, start using them and give us feedback. There is, in the left-hand corner, bottom left-hand corner, there is a feedback button. And feel free to use that in the console to give us feedback on the services, the console experience, and so on.
Yeah. And also, if you don't like it, we're also interested in things you don't like. It's not just about everything's great. It's a new service. We have just introduced it. And I'm sure there's tons of features to come, but 90 to 95% of what we built because our customers ask us for it. We don't just sit there and think of things we could build. We really try to understand what you need. So please let us know. I'm gonna quit the screen sharing for now. Here we go.
Yeah, cool. So,
and just to make sure, Javier Internet just asked, and I'll look up the documentation because I haven't looked into it yet. Persistence is in temp folder or in the home folder, and I'm gonna look up in the documentation now real quick is if also the home folder is being persisted or not, because I don't want to tell anything that's not correct. Give me a second. While Gunnar, maybe you want to.
Yeah, for sure. So let me open up this again. So AWS Cloud Shell, as Dennis mentioned, it's not available in all regions at the moment. In Europe, we have it in the Ireland region. And make sure to give it a spin and try the service to see how it actually works. I have used it quite a lot so far because I am definitely one of those users that switch devices every now and then and don't really want to install all of those tools on all devices. So, and also as a Windows user, it's great to have access to Linux shell as well straight away without having the need to use WSL, for instance, in Windows.
Yeah, and I just found an answer. What I said is not entirely correct. So I put it. Here you go. So persistent storage is located in your home directory and is private to you. So you do have persistent storage in your home directory, but you also, in addition to that, have persistent storage in the temp directory, which is also private to you. So your configuration You don't have to move your and I said that incorrectly. You don't have to move your configuration into the temp directory. You can keep it. You can have your bash rc and your .ssh directory and so forth inside of your home directory. But if you want to install additional applications and tools, you have to make sure they're installed in the temp directory and not in, for instance, the user bin or opt directories.
Cool. All right, so moving on then, unless there's any more questions around Cloud Shell right now. It is. So
we've got a question.
I think this is a good one. So is it mainly used for testing scripts and trying APIs, etc.? Your take first, Dennis.
It depends. That's the answer that I really don't like. I'm sorry, but it really depends on what
we have. The banner. It depends.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, yes, you can use it for that. And some things, it really is to test things, to really quickly get access to things. But also some features inside of AWS are not readily available in the console. Some things are only available through the API. And so even if you're in the console, you can still get access to the things in the API. But at the same time, many people really like to work in the command line, in the shell, and don't like to work on a visual interface. And this is a way to just have a shell available with the same permissions that you would have if you would use the web-based interface. So for many, specifically ops people or people with an admin or an ops background, many of them really live and breathe in the shell. And they don't like to go to a web page, but also this way they can access the shell from anywhere. They don't have to sit at their own machine or have a terminal into their own machine. So for many people, really, it's to test things, to discover the API. But for other people, really, it's to work in the cloud and build things and use the CLI instead of the web-based interface.
Yeah, and that's the way I've primarily used it so far. It's certain things you want to do, as Dennis mentioned, isn't available in the UI in the console, or it's multiple steps to do the same thing using the console. So it's quicker to do it using a CLI. So that's how I've been using it so far, as a way to just do certain CLI commands in a quick fashion.
Mm-hmm. And we do have another question here by G. Willis. Can you run Terraform Cloud Shell? Yes, of course. So you can install Terraform in your Cloud Shell environment and then write Terraform modules and run them. So you can do anything you could in every other Linux environment too. So it is a full-blown Linux environment. You can download, install, and run all the tools that you want. The only thing that's important is that the persistent store that is being carried across sessions is only 1 GB, and it needs to be installed in the temp directory. But you can use it for everything. You can run Terraform and deploy workloads to the cloud using Terraform from the Cloud Shell.
Right. Moving on, perhaps, from Cloud Shell.
Yeah.
Let's do that. And the next announcement that you had on your list, Dennis, that excites you is professional services in AWS Marketplace. Why is this exciting, Dennis?
I used to be a consultant. And there are two things. I've been working with many customers as a consultant, but also I've been working on the other side. I've been a software developer my whole life. And the thing is, it is very often very different to quickly find a contractor who can help you with a specific thing. So if you're like me and you have worked in a company that has a purchasing process where you can't just say I need something and then you can figure out where to buy it from and then you buy it from, but you have to go through a purchasing department with a purchasing process where you need to get offers, quotes, and have to go through a bidding process, a request for proposals, and all these kinds of things. And maybe you really just need someone to help you with this one thing, and it would be just 2 hours worth of work. If you would have to do it on your own, it would take you days. But if you could bring in somebody who's an expert in the space, you could bring them in and they could help you, and it's just maybe half a day of work, but you have to go through this whole process to find a vendor. And then your company has a number of default vendors, but they couldn't help you because they're not, and so forth. A long story, and I've been on the receiving end of this story a lot of times. And what's really helpful is that you can now purchase professional services. So you can purchase consulting services through the AWS Marketplace. And it is being purchased and built through AWS. So if your company has a contract with AWS, which you do have if you use AWS, you can really quickly and effectively find AWS experts, or even experts for third-party tools that also run inside of AWS, like SAP or Jira or Windows Server or whatever. You could find all kinds of experts through the through the AWS Marketplace, and really get in touch with them through the Marketplace, do your contractual agreements to the Marketplace, and then actually hire them. And the billing goes through AWS as well. So you don't need to use a heavyweight process to purchase professional services when you need that quickly. And the other side is, as a professional services provider, it is, if you are a consultant, it is a really great platform to find your customer, to make yourself available to your customers, where maybe you are an expert in cloud security or in cloud operations, or maybe in Terraform on AWS. And you can provide these services through the professional services area in the Marketplace. You have to be an an Amazon Partner Network partner, a consulting partner, because we again need to make sure that all the services that are provided through the Marketplace meet our high quality bars. So not everyone can just offer their services, and you as a customer have a certain risk of getting bad quality work. We make sure through our partner network, we really make sure that our partners meet our high bar. And you as a customer are sure, you can be sure, if you purchase professional services from a third-party provider through the Marketplace, that they meet our high bar. And at the same time, if you are a services provider, if you are a consultant, you can, if you meet our bar, you also can reach our customers through the Marketplace. And that's really great. For many people just getting started with AWS, that probably is not that important, but many of our customers really have told us we need access to AWS experts and to experts who have experience in other products that run inside of AWS. And our own purchasing process is just way too heavyweight, and we need help there. And that is what the professional services segment is in the Marketplace now. What do you think, Gunnar? Did you work with professional services in the past?
Yes. So my background, at least for a while, has been working as a consultant, working with professional services, and the procurement process is often one of the biggest obstacles to go through. If you're new, working with many times at least a larger customer, it takes such a long time to be approved, to be able to sell your services, offer your services to that company. So having this as an option, I think it's great. It's a great help for AWS partners. It's a great help for AWS customers looking for those type of services.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah.
if you just join us, this is the AWS Nordics office hours. My name is Gunnar Grosch. I am joined by Dennis Traub today. We're talking about some of the announcements we saw at AWS reInvent, and we've talked about, well, subjects ranging from like this, professional services in AWS Marketplace, to the climate pledge and a bit of Cloud Shell as well. So if you have any questions, keep them coming. We have about 11 minutes to go to answer any questions you might have. So with that then, let's jump into one of the services that I am quite excited about. And that is Amazon DevOps Guru. So this is one of the new services we announced that is an ML-powered service. And several of the services we announced this year have machine learning in the background. They're helping us using machine learning in different ways. And in this case, it's a service that is supposed to help the operators of applications, of services, and so on to perhaps detect issues, improve the availability of your application, or reduce the downtime that certain applications might have, things that you operate and run in the AWS cloud. And the good thing, of course, about these managed services is that if you want to use this service, you don't have to have any machine learning experience to use it. The machine learning, that's baked into the service, so that's something that we managed for you. Make sure that that is used in an optimal way. So you don't have to set up or train any machine learning models to be able to run this service, DevOps Guru. And DevOps Guru, the way I think you should approach it, look at it as something that will help your operators to get better insight into how the application works, how your application behaves, and what you can do to then improve the availability and so on about that application. And one of the key points about this service is we're talking about alarm fatigue, because having alarms, having monitoring and so on your application, it often means that you will get a lot of noise. You get alarms from your services that then, well, it becomes noisy, and it becomes hard for operators to then use that data in a meaningful way. But the way DevOps Guru works is that it uses this machine learning, these pre-trained models, to then act on the data that every application, every system that you run will then log and use that data for your operators to then improve how the application works. So I'm very excited about DevOps Guru. I think it's a service that many companies, both AWS partners and AWS customers, will find it as a meaningful way to work with when you're operating different services on AWS. Have you looked at DevOps Guru, Dennis?
No, not yet.
No?
I think,
well,
DevOps
there
Guru
were 200 announcements or something
Yeah.
like that, so it's fine if you haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, no, I haven't. Didn't get a chance to look at DevOps Guru, and I think the two things together. Now I'm missing the name. The other one, Code Guru. Sorry, Code Guru. I think DevOps Guru, DevOps Guru, and Code Guru and other services are a very good example how machine learning and artificial intelligence really can be applied away from the theoretical, scientific, high research around machine learning, artificial intelligence, and so forth, model building with SageMaker, which is something that we very often talk about and that is very important to many of our customers. But on the other side, there are so many practical applications of machine learning and artificial intelligence. And DevOps Guru, DevOps Guru, as well as Code Guru and other services like Amazon Detective or GuardDuty, are services where you can see that machine learning models, well-trained machine learning models really can help make your work easier, take away, again, a lot of the undifferentiated heavy lifting, and take care of so many things for you that every operational team has to, or most operational teams have to deal with. So DevOps Guru includes many, many things that really help with the day-to-day work that just takes a lot of time and doesn't bring any real value. And that's what I really like about it. I haven't looked at it. I will definitely look into it, because as interesting as machine learning and AI is, I like the applications. I like when it really helps me in my day-to-day work. And that's what DevOps Guru does.
Yeah, I agree. There's a question about billing for DevOps Guru. I posted the link to the billing page. You pay for the time that that resources are analyzed, and you then pay for the API calls to DevOps Guru. So depending on what type of resources you're working with, the pricing might differ. So have a look at the pricing page for more details on that.
Yeah.
Another service that is very related then, because it's also a machine learning powered service, is Amazon Lookout for Metrics. This is one that I'm very excited about as well, because everything we build, everything we run, it just creates so much metrics, so much data all the time. And using that data in a meaningful way, it can be really hard, because it's hard to follow the metrics and see what actually happens with that data. So service like Amazon Lookout for Metrics is then able to process that data, all of the metrics that we're creating, and then find anomalies in the data to see what type of issues there might be, for instance. And what we're doing is, once again, using machine learning and having these pre-trained models that you don't have to train, but then we're using the data that you process in the system to then improve on the model. So it will improve over time and learn more and more about the system that you're using Lookout for Metrics on. So this is a service that I think is very useful for a lot of the things that we build in the cloud today, because we have so much data, and being able to get help with analyzing that data, I think it's great.
Yeah, and one thing that you said is, I think, really important. What it does is not only it not only has models trained with tons of data and information that we had running Amazon for 20 plus years, running AWS and so forth, but also it creates a baseline of your application. And very similar to GuardDuty, if you have used GuardDuty in the past, which you should, because it really helps make your cloud workload much more secure. It creates a baseline, so it monitors, it basically retrains its model over time with your baseline data flow. For instance, you have, if you run a web application, you have a certain amount of 404 errors per day. And the system, basically Lookout for Metrics, learns that this is normal for your workload. And if all of a sudden the number of 404s, the number of pages not found, significantly goes up, Lookout for Metrics realizes this is a deviation. This is something that we should look into. Maybe the reason is because something broke, but maybe also the reason is because something is trying to fuzz the web application and trying to find a way to attack the web application. So this not only can help with monitoring for operational issues, but actually can really help make your security posture better, because some operational deviations can have very different root causes, and this is what this helps us with, and that's really great. And it's not every service is like Amazon.com, the website. Not every web page is the same. So again, it trains its model on your specific workloads, and then helps you understand if the behavior of your operational data deviates from your regular baseline. I had maybe just an example. I had something similar using GuardDuty. And GuardDuty basically is an intrusion detection system that monitors your AWS account and makes sure to tell you if something is odd. And what it did is I ran a workshop in Lithuania once, a couple of years ago. I ran an AWS workshop in Lithuania, and I've never before been in Lithuania. And all of a sudden, I get a lot of alarms from GuardDuty, so from my AWS account, because somebody, which was me, somebody logged into my AWS account from Lithuania, which has never happened before. So that could be a sign that things are, that somebody's trying to break into my system. And in this instance, it was actually me, but it could also have been helpful, because if it wasn't me, I would know that somebody was trying to break into my system. And lookout for metrics works very similar for operational data, for metrics.
I think that's a great use case. And on that note, then, well, it means that we are running out of time. So I want to thank Dennis for joining me today. Thank everyone for watching. You have the upcoming schedule once again on screen right now. Next Monday, don't miss that session, AWS Fault Injection Simulator with me and Adrian Hornsby. So with that, everyone, do like Ian. Look forward to the 5th session next week. All right. Thank you, Dennis. And
thanks, Gunnar. Thanks everyone.
For watching. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.